Thanks, Renato. I appreciate it. And the Green School for having us. It's just a fantastic space every time I'm here. I just fall more and more in love with it. This is the first ever talk for Shiva. For the familiar faces in the crowd, you know that we've been working really hard over the last 8 months to design, build, and produce a hyper composting machine, an aerobic digestion machine. Even our microbes are Balinese, right here in Bali. So it's something we're very proud of, but we're not here to talk about Shiva. So Om Swastiastu, Selamat Pagi, good morning. Let's rock into it. Also, Tanguy, thank you, mate. That was phenomenal and really cool, and everything that you guys do. So what can you take away from today? That you are in control, that you don't have to do large scale either farming, because it's not the future, as Tenguy's just taken us through, and you don't have to do large scale landfilling or waste management yourself. You can do it at home really easily. You can start today really easily. So that's the one thing that I want everybody to take away from today, is you are in control. We the people are in control. All you need to do is actually just do something. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. I grew up on a farm. Tenguy, I'm sorry, I grew up on a large-scale farm with monocrops and fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides. But I'm now back on the farm, which is really interesting and something that I'm extremely grateful for. I don't want to sit and tell my story. I'm going to just point your eyes to that tree in the middle. That tree is 700 years old. It is a river red gum, and it sits on our property, which is about a 3-hour drive from where river red gums are from. How to get there? The Jaja Gorung people, who are the native owners of the land, they brought it there. Why did they bring it there? Because they know that that tree grows incredibly strong shade and is malleable enough, if planted at a young enough age, to bow the branch. And you can see this branch here is bowed. So they bring it down a 3-hour drive. They were driving 700 years ago, just set fire. It took them a lot longer. Bowed the branch down towards the ground, tied it down, and created a really natural shade for the community. It's also known as a birthing tree. So we've been working with nature, in harmony with nature, for a really long time. So to Tenguy's point, we just need to get back to that. A lot of these stats have been covered. I think whilst we're on food waste, I think the big number here is the 65% organic waste. 65%. There are some fantastic people in this room doing some fantastic stuff with organics and plastics, and people that I know. There's probably lots of people doing cool stuff that I don't know in this room. That organics is the majority of our waste. That's fine, because it just sort of disintegrates, right? And it just goes into the earth and just composts. No. As I think both Renato and Tenguy have said, it releases huge amounts of greenhouse gases. And methane, if you ask Volker, is 85 times worse than carbon for the environment. So depending on which study you read, it's anywhere between 25 and 85 times worse in the environment than carbon. Yeah. Is it more now?
The GVP thing, if you take a 100-year time span or a 20-year time span, right. It's because methane is short-lived. We could look at a 20-year time span, and that's why it's 85. Oh. Perfect.
Got it. So either way, bad. So if you can probably handle food waste, it's bad. And we've gone through the rest of the stats. Moving closer to Indonesia, and that food waste is growing, and sadly we're in the middle of this construction waste, which is growing here in Bali. But moving to the middle one, and I think this is a really interesting stat for me. The number one food that we waste in Indonesia is rice, which is mind-blowing. Bali has 100,000 ton deficit every year, a shortage of rice. But the number one food that we waste in Indonesia is rice. How does that work? Where is the system broken from wasting 1/3 of the food that we produce that contributes 35% of the greenhouse gases, to wasting 40% of that large crop, a large component of that crop? is absolutely mind-blowing. Over here, the only number I want to point you to is the 17.2%. So I could probably cover it without the microphone, but so 17.2% is plastics. So don't get me wrong, plastics are horrible. We don't want to eat them. We don't want to see them. We don't want our food eating them. And they're around for a really long time. But there are some incredible people. Martine Plastics sits somewhere in here, doing stuff with plastics. But it is 17%. So 65% is the stuff that we need to really hone in on. The stuff that ends up filling up the landfills. The stuff that ends up producing the methane in incredible amounts. The stuff that becomes a major propellant. And when landfills go on fire, they burn a lot longer and a lot hotter, and they have a lot of plastic and other crap in there, so which is an amazing fuel. So that those extra toxins are no good, as well as leaching into the water table and ruining the water table. Bali. I only updated this number this week. It broke my heart. I was previously under the assumption, based on data that I had, that it was 584,000 tonnes a year of organic waste. It's now over 1 million. I'm going to jump really quickly through a couple of key sectors: hospitality, F&B, malls, retail, etc. And on this graph, what I want you to really focus on is the far left-hand side and the far right-hand side. The far left-hand side being North America, Oceania, and the far right-hand side being Sub-Saharan Africa. The yellow part at the bottom is production, and the green part at the top is consumption. And when we're talking, when Tanguy was talking, I was sort of nodding, going, "Thank God I've got this slide in there." Because you are talking about really industrialized food production. We've got it slick, we've got the technology, we've got the money, and we're producing this food with minimal waste, maximum profits to the corporations. But we're being absolute idiots once it gets to the plate. Absolute idiots, wasting so much food that goes directly into landfill, compost systems, etc. Switch over to Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a lot more manual, no technology, and highly dependent on the weather. And as I do have experience in getting crops in and getting crops out, and knowing how urgent that can be sometimes, and I know some of the people in this room do as well. If you don't have the technology to get that crop in on time, then that crop is doomed to fail. Similarly, on the other side, if you're having catastrophic weather events, which we're having more of, if you can't get that crop out on time, then that crop is gone. And so that's why you will see a lot more wastage here. But what happens when they get the food? Hey man, imagine if we could bring that bit over here and then sort of flatten it across the earth. That would be absolutely fantastic. And this education sector, which I think is also interesting to touch on, only because I know how well the Green School does and being here, but most education corporates, etc., do not. They are huge contributors to the food waste issue. And you are talking about mass-produced meals. So you are talking about that real scale. So when a large plate of nasi goreng, rendang, lasagna, whatever you're making, whatever you're getting fed in your cafeterias, goes bad, or an apprentice drops it, or whatever happens, it gets contaminated, it's gone. And you can see that in the red section, which is the serving waste. So it's not being wasted generally by the students. That's a smaller part. It's being wasted in the preparation time, and that's serving. Tanguy just covered all of this. It's awesome, and we agree with everything that he said, always. So thank you very much for that. And I won't go into the ag sector, but 35% of greenhouse gas emissions from the ag sector. So it's, and when you're talking about kilos at a household level, you're talking about thousands of tons at a production level. So something that really needs to be considered. And a fun fact, I mean, the main crops that we grow here are actually really high in silica. They're waste. So they're actually really valuable crops. When we go back to the large-scale fertilizer production world, last year in the US, only 65% of fertilizer orders were met. Why? Because they had a lack of quality silica inputs. And I can tell you that rice, when you recycle rice or when you digest rice, aerobically digest, not you guys digesting, rice guys, you create almost a pure silica product. Coconut husk, exactly the same. So all of these natural fertilizers already exist here in the dirt. The nitrogen exists here in the dirt. The carbon, everything that we need, the NPK, which is commonly used across fertilizers, already exists here naturally and can be produced organically. There's no surprises here. I think the number's underreported, to be honest. It's a lot higher for sure. Anybody who can prove to me that it is 70%, please do. But that's the official number. 70% of that follows a linear approach. Which is pretty scary. That landfill is by far the major default. And we saw this during the fires with the pop-up DPAs, 200, 300, 400 trucks a day. Build, if we're both going on data, 65% of organic waste. It just shouldn't be there. So it breaks my tiny little black heart. So we know there's a lot of waste. That's cool. Okay, there's a lot of waste. That's fine. We're aware of it. We know that we can all play a part in reducing food waste and organic waste. We know that there are definitely ways to deal with it. What happens if we don't? So greenhouse gases, yes. So if we look at it in 3 phases, above the soil, so we know that methane is produced. We know that carbon is produced. We know these things are bad and badder for the environment and for us as a species. And the soil, when left to rot and left unchecked, organic waste is horrific for soil, especially when mixed with other contaminants in landfill. So anytime there is some rain, all of those leachates go through into the soil, then into the water table. They're brought back up by dig wells. They're put back through the soil, and the cycle goes on, and the soil gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and yields drop. And thank you would probably have more data on this than me, but there's only so much that you can do with your soil without regenerating it before it is desolate and destroyed. So this is something that we absolutely need to look at. Starvation, absolutely. The up to 47% of the population could be fed with the food waste if we kept that in check. So if we kept that consumption line in check, so we produced the food that we that could eat, and we ate the food that we produced, not just producing en masse at scale for profits and then throwing a third of it away, which is exactly what's happening right now. And I love this little image. I expected the screen to be bigger, so I should have put it on its own slide, but the impact doesn't look so bad. Solid waste, the overall environmental impact is something that is monstrous. So we're talking about the major source of our waste, the major source by far, by a country mile. And then we're talking about how it has a hugely detrimental effect on the environment. Surely we've got to be doing more about it, right? Surely that's alarm bells for everybody. It's one of my faves. I'll leave it there for a second. I got my clock ticking down. Renato, give me the eyes as well. So, cool. You even made it into my deck, mate. Look, decentralize. The optimal solution for everybody is to manage your organic waste on site. Okay. The next optimal solution is to do that within your community or within a closed group to limit the transportation. The absolute worst possible case is to centralize it and centralize it and hope that somebody else is going to do something responsible with it, because they're not. They're really not. And I'm not blaming this on Bali. I'm not blaming this on Indonesia. This is every country in the world. So this is a major issue. So decentralize. I think you kind of get it. Decentralize. Okay. Now there are tons of ways to do it. These are some of the majors. There are some composting legends in the room. Black soldier fly larvae is also a really interesting way to deal with organic waste as well, especially in more remote or rural communities, because it can be a bit smelly, but also you're creating proteins and animal feed from your food waste as well as a fertilizer that comes out of it. So it's quite a valuable way of doing things, but it's not for everybody. It takes up a lot of space, and it's not to be done. You just can't be done everywhere, and I don't think it would be done in urban areas. Cedric, these are not in line, just FYI. I should have done that and see you clicking on me. So landfill bad, composting, good. Anaerobic digestion, which is really large scale organic waste processing. It's very much like aerobic digestion, which is what we do at Shiva, minus the oxygen. So similar to what Tenga was showing earlier, you bring in organic waste, you apply heat and microbes, you create an optimal environment for combustion to happen, and an anaerobic process to happen. And the byproducts of that are biochar, which is a fantastic fertilizer and soil additive when mixed. And then also biogas, which could be further refined. So you can use that for cooking. You can also use that for further refined into biomethane for vehicles, etc. So we don't need to go and dig up those fossil fuels, the fossils made. And then aerobic digestion, which is what Shiva does, which is oxygen, heat, and microbes. That's it. All we do is stir them around. It's really easy, right? Don't worry about this. I'll make this deck public. Although, Rob, can you just get me into cell 335? It's funny. The landing in organic waste wasn't. I really didn't expect to do that. I actually came to Bali to set up a tech startup, but failed at that. And then went and did the plastics tour of duty and met some of the practitioners, and then found this big gap in organics where people are just not dealing with it at scale. And so, the big things that stick out for me, and I've gone through them with you, and I hope they stick with you guys after today. 65% of our waste is organic. That doesn't need to be going anywhere to rot and create methane and do all of these gnarly things that it shouldn't be doing. Okay, so it's really easy for everybody to take control and do it on your own scale, or work in your company with your companies to do it on a larger scale. But decentralize. And the third thing is act today. There is absolutely nothing stopping anybody, any of us. And that was one of the things where I woke up in the middle of the night and said, shit, I've got to do something. And so we decided to. I'm not going to go into aerobic digestion because I've kind of just gone into it. But the key part here is the cohorts of microbes. Our microbes, we've sourced from all over the island, and now we create them in our lab. So they are Balinese microbes, but they are incredibly well suited to the local environment, local waste profiles as well. So they're very effective, which allows them to do what they need to do in 24 hours, which is pretty cool. Short video so you get less of my voice. I think we've still got time. big hatchet to my wife. Hopefully that's really going really quickly. I'm not going to go through this, but the machine was meant to be here. The machines that, you know, really fully automated and IoT, which is awesome for even remote locations. They can be remotely monitored and operated. But we measure the NPK, so the nitrogen, etc., content of each batch of organic fertilizer that comes out of the machines. So once again, you can put anything inside of this machine that's organic. So for the right size machine, you can put an entire beast into it, whole, and in 24 hours, you will get a really nutrient-rich soil additive. You can put coconuts shredded, bamboo shredded, sugarcane shredded, but the rest of any sort of municipal solid waste or food waste just goes straight through the machine, feeds the microbes, allows them to grow a cool little community, creates some enzymes that break down that food waste. Takes down infectious waste. So we are working with some hospitals and also meat processing plants that quizzed us on infectious waste. Yes, we can pasteurize, so we can deal with all of that bacteria. There's no smell because the microbes actually really, really love the bacteria that makes things smell. So that's one of the most interesting parts, is when really smelly waste goes in a really short amount of time, once a couple of rotations, the smell's gone. Our goals. I'm coming to the end. No, the clock's at 0 now, sorry. But I know Tango went over because I was timing him. Number one, to zero out Bali's organic waste. That is our first step. That's our mission. So our machines, no matter where they are in the world, and we're currently building machines for Flores, for Thailand, and currently looking into the other markets around the region. We want to be able to know that we've processed 1 million, bit over, and growing. Every year, we want to make sure that we're zeroing out Bali's organic waste production, because we owe that to the island that we were born on. So that's our first mission. The next one's a bit gnarlier. Indonesia's waste, and that's 40 million tons and growing. These numbers are going to grow every day, but finally, to liberate landfills from organic waste globally. It doesn't have to be there. And any time that you see organic waste that's been handled centrally and or improperly, just know how destructive it is and know how easy it is to not be there and to not be a part of the problem. And this is kind of it. Nobody else is going to do it, so why not jump in? I know we've got Q&A coming up, so I will save all the questions for there. I've also got some hot merch, fresh off the press, that arrived last night for the best questions. So I will send this deck around because there's a lot of text in there that I don't think people could read. Not that it was that interesting. I think I said a lot of it, but so maybe I said the boring stuff and the really good stuff was in the deck. It could be the other way around. Yeah, thank you very much.